The little girl sat alone on the concrete steps of Morgan Technologies, shoulders hunched against weight no 7-year-old should carry. Her dress cost more than most people's monthly rent, but money couldn't stop the tears tracking down her cheeks, or the way her small hands trembled around a stuffed rabbit missing its left eye. Security guards passed without slowing. Executives hurried by, attention welded to smartphone screens displaying stock tickers and urgent emails. The city moved around her like she didn't exist. Darius Calloway stopped. At 44, his face told stories his lips rarely shared. Lines around his eyes mapped years of squinting through desert sun and scanning rooftops for threats that never announced themselves. His posture shifted automatically as he surveyed the scene, weight distributing to the balls of his feet, shoulders squared but loose. Old habits from Fort Bragg and 3 tours that never quite left a man's muscle memory. The Morgan Technologies logo gleamed on the breast pocket of his maintenance uniform. Navy blue fabric worn soft at the elbows. His name tag read simply, D. Calloway, Building Services. He knelt slowly before the child, movements deliberate and non-threatening. The brown paper lunch bag crinkled in his calloused hands as he opened it. Rough morning? His voice carried the texture of a man who'd shouted orders through sandstorms and whispered tactical coordinates in compounds where breathing too loud meant death. The girl looked up, startled. Red-rimmed eyes met his, and Darius saw something that made his chest tighten. She stared with the weariness of someone far older than her years, like she'd already learned that adults disappointed you and the world took more than it gave. He nodded as if they'd completed an entire conversation. Yeah, I get those too. The sandwich emerged from the bag, turkey and Swiss wrapped in wax paper his neighbor Mrs. Kowalski had given him because she said plastic was killing the oceans. Darius tore it in half, offering the larger portion. Seems like you could use this more than me. Behind them, the distinctive click of high heels on concrete paused mid-stride. Darius's ears, trained to detect the subtlest sounds in hostile territory, registered the presence immediately. He kept his focus on the child. Years of combat had taught him when someone was watching, evaluating, making calculations that would ripple into consequences. The weight of that stare pressed against his back like crosshairs finding their mark. The girl's small hand reached out hesitantly, fingers closing around the sandwich half. I'm Darius, a whispered reply barely audible above the traffic. Lily. Nice to meet you, Lily. Darius settled beside her on the step, leaving careful space between them. His peripheral vision tracked the woman behind them, cataloging details the way he'd once cataloged potential threats. Expensive suit, confident posture, authority radiating from her stance like heat from asphalt in July. Mind if I join you for lunch? As Lily took a small bite, Darius felt those eyes boring into the back of his skull. Someone was watching, assessing, and making decisions that would change everything. Neither he nor Lily noticed the black sedan with tinted windows across the street, or the man inside holding a camera with a telephoto lens. The shutter clicked 3 times, capturing the moment a maintenance worker shared his lunch with a CEO's daughter. Darius's day began like every other at 4:30 in the morning with the soft beep of his watch alarm. He silenced it before the second chirp. Muscle memory from forward operating bases where sound discipline meant the difference between mission success and body bags. The Bronx apartment was still dark as he moved through familiar shadows to Isaiah's room, each footfall placed with unconscious precision on the floorboards that didn't creak. His son's breathing filled the small space, steady but with that faint whistle that always made Darius's stomach clench. He placed a gentle hand on Isaiah's forehead, checking for fever. The boy's skin felt cool, and Darius allowed himself a moment of relief before beginning his morning ritual. Coffee first. The cheap stuff that tasted like battery acid but kept him functional through 12-hour shifts. While it brewed, he arranged Isaiah's medications on the breakfast plate. 4 different prescriptions color-coded by the pharmacy in orange, blue, white, and yellow bottles. Each one represented a choice between his son's health and other necessities. The albuterol inhaler sat in the center like an altarpiece, nearly empty. Refill needed. $175 without insurance. Bills came next, sorted into 3 piles on the scratched kitchen table. Paid, must pay, impossible. The last pile grew taller each month, dominated by medical statements stamped in aggressive red ink. Final notice, past due, account sent to collections. Darius's jaw tightened as he looked at the numbers. $3,847. The amount felt abstract, like trying to visualize the distance to the moon. He tucked his last $20 bill into Isaiah's lunch money envelope, sealing it with care. Dad. Isaiah appeared in the doorway, hair sticking up in all directions, drowning in pajamas 2 sizes too big from the Goodwill on 149th Street. At 7 years old, he looked smaller than other kids his age, like his body understood that space and resources were limited and adjusted accordingly. "You're doing the worry face again." Darius's expression immediately softened, transforming stern features into something approaching warmth. "Just thinking, champ. How's the breathing this morning?" "Good." Isaiah shuffled to the table, climbing onto his chair with the careful movements of a child who'd learned to conserve energy. "Did you make another sandwich sacrifice to the lunch gods?" Darius smiled despite himself, the rare expression changing his entire demeanor. "What makes you say that?" Isaiah pointed to the paper bag containing only an apple and a protein bar. "Your lunch bag looks empty, and you got that crinkle between your eyes. The one that means you're pretending everything's fine." Sharp eyes, just like his mother's. The observation landed heavier than Isaiah could know. "Mrs. Kowalski next door made too much casserole yesterday. She's sending me with leftovers." The lie came easily, cushioned by necessity. Isaiah didn't need to know that Mrs. Kowalski had been visiting her sister in Jersey all week, or that Darius would work through lunch again, stomach growling through fixture repairs and HVAC maintenance. What mattered was the medicine, the rent, and keeping his boy's world intact after Vanessa died 3 years ago in an accident that shouldn't have happened. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong drunk driver who walked away with minor injuries while Darius's wife bled out on the Cross Bronx Expressway. "Get ready for school, soldier." Darius straightened to his full height, giving a playful salute that Isaiah returned with giggling seriousness. As his son dressed, Darius allowed himself one moment of weakness. He leaned against the kitchen counter, eyes closed, shoulders momentarily slumped under the weight of single parenthood and minimum wage and medical bills that multiplied like rabbits. The photograph on the refrigerator caught his attention. Himself in desert camouflage, arms slung around another soldier, both men younger and less burdened by the knowledge of what came after. Captain Michael Ashford grinned at the camera, blue eyes bright with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted his place in the world. They'd been brothers in everything but blood, bonded by firefights and endless patrols and the particular intimacy that came from trusting another man with your life on a daily basis. Darius touched the image briefly, the familiar ache in his chest flaring like old shrapnel working its way to the surface. "I'm keeping my promise, Mike, no matter what it takes." The maintenance corridors of Morgan Technologies were a labyrinth of pipes, electrical panels, and service elevators that Darius navigated with practiced efficiency. His tool belt clinked softly against his hip as he moved through the building's skeleton, invisible to the corporate world that pulsed on the other side of drywall and acoustic ceiling tiles. It was a different kind of reconnaissance, less deadly but requiring the same attention to detail. Every building had its rhythms and patterns, its vulnerabilities and pressure points. Darius checked his watch. 10:45. He'd skipped the employee break room, avoiding the pitying glances when others noticed his empty lunch table spot again. The encounter with Lily on the steps had delayed his maintenance schedule, but he couldn't bring himself to regret it. Something in her eyes reminded him too much of Isaiah after Vanessa's funeral, lost and confused and trying to be brave when the world made absolutely no sense. His radio crackled with static before a dispatcher's voice cut through. "Calloway, we need you on 32, executive bathroom leak. Copy that. On my way." Darius adjusted his course toward the service elevator, taking it to the executive floor. The ride was smooth and silent, engineered for comfort rather than the industrial efficiency of the freight elevators he usually used. When the doors opened on 32, he stepped into another world. Glass and chrome and hushed conversations. Assistants with perfect hair moved between offices carrying tablets instead of tools, their heels clicking on marble floors that probably cost more per square foot than Darius's annual salary. He kept his eyes forward, ignoring the curious glances at his uniform as he followed discreet signage to the executive restroom. He was kneeling beside the sink cabinet, wrench in hand, when the bathroom door swung open. "I don't care what the board thinks, James. The security protocols aren't negotiable." The woman's voice was crisp and authoritative, the kind accustomed to being obeyed without question or delay. Darius remained focused on his work, becoming invisible the way maintenance workers always did around executives. People who made six figures rarely saw the people who fixed their toilets and changed their light bulbs. "Sarah, be reasonable. The new system is causing delays across all departments." A man's voice, older and laced with barely concealed irritation. "The quarterly numbers will reflect our commitment to protecting our technology." The woman cut him off with surgical precision. "After the breach last month, we can't afford another vulnerability." Darius's hand stilled momentarily. "Security breach." The company rumor mill had mentioned nothing about this, and building services heard everything eventually. Gossip traveled through maintenance corridors faster than email. "The leak has been contained." The man lowered his voice to a register that suggested he was revealing sensitive information. "No one outside the executive team knows." "Someone always knows, James. That's why I've authorized additional measures." Their voices moved toward the mirror. Darius caught their reflections without looking up. The woman was elegant in a tailored suit that probably cost what he paid in rent for 3 months. Dark blonde hair pulled into a severe bun that seemed designed to discourage casual conversation. The man was older, with silver temples and a perpetual frown carved into his features like someone had used a chisel. "This discussion is over." The woman's tone carried the finality of a judge pronouncing sentence. "I expect your compliance report by end of day." As they turned to leave, the woman's eyes flickered to Darius for the first time. He kept his focus on the pipes, playing his role perfectly. Just another maintenance worker, invisible and unhearing. The bathroom door closed behind them with a soft hydraulic hiss. Darius waited 30 seconds before sitting back on his heels, processing what he'd overheard. Security breach, contained leak, additional measures. The information slotted into his mind like pieces of mission intelligence, details that seemed inconsequential until you stepped back and saw the pattern they formed. His radio buzzed again, and this time the dispatcher's voice carried an edge. "Calloway, report to HR immediately." Darius's stomach tightened. Had they realized he'd overheard? Security cameras were everywhere in this building, including the executive floor. "Copy that. Finishing up here first. Negative." "Now, Calloway. Executive order." The HR office was as sterile and impersonal as a military briefing room, all motivational posters and ergonomic furniture that prioritized appearance over comfort. Darius sat stiffly in the visitor's chair, his tool belt and uniform conspicuously out of place among the corporate trappings. The HR director was a woman with a practiced smile that never quite reached her eyes. the kind of professional pleasantness that concealed calculated indifference. She placed a folder on the desk between them with theatrical precision. "Mr. Calloway, we've been asked to escort you to the executive floor." Darius kept his voice neutral, face unreadable. "Is there a problem with my work?" "On the contrary." The smile remained fixed in place like a mask. "Miss Ashford has specifically requested you." Darius's pulse quickened, a small spike of adrenaline his body released without conscious permission. The name hit like shrapnel working through old scar tissue. Ashford. It couldn't be coincidence. The name was too specific, too connected to memories he'd spent 5 years trying to outrun. "May I ask why?" "That's between you and Miss Ashford." The HR director stood, smoothing her skirt. "Please follow me." They rode the elevator in silence, ascending to the uppermost floor. Darius cataloged escape routes and security cameras out of habit, noting the increased presence of guards as they approached the CEO suite. His training never shut off completely, even after 5 years of civilian life. The mahogany double doors opened to reveal a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Manhattan spread below like a circuit board, millions of lights representing millions of lives intersecting and diverging in patterns too complex to comprehend. The woman from the bathroom stood with her back to him, staring out at the urban landscape. The HR director slipped away, closing the door softly behind her, with a quiet click that sounded unnaturally loud in the silence. "Darius Calloway." The woman spoke without turning, her voice different now, less corporate authority, more personal weight. "Former Staff Sergeant, 5th Special Forces Group, expert in tactical operations, communications, and mechanical systems." She turned slowly, and Darius felt the world tilt sideways. "Honorably discharged 5 years ago following the Khorasan province incident." Her eyes found his, and recognition slammed into him like a breaching charge. He'd seen those eyes before in photographs Michael had carried in his pack, shown around campfires during the rare downtime between operations. The wedding photo, the anniversary snapshot, the picture of a woman holding a newborn baby, both of them waiting for a soldier who would never come home. Darius stood at parade rest, his face passive despite the jolt running through his nervous system. "Yes, ma'am. Do you know who I am, Mr. Calloway?" She approached her desk, moving with the controlled precision of someone who measured every action for maximum efficiency. "You're Miss Ashford, the CEO, Victoria Ashford." She studied him for a long moment, and Darius had the uncomfortable sensation of being X-rayed. "Though my legal name is Victoria Ashford Morgan, I never took my maiden name back after Michael died. Seemed wrong somehow, erasing him like that." The room tilted again. Darius's mind raced through implications and possibilities, connecting dots he'd never wanted to see arranged in this particular constellation. "You still don't recognize me?" It wasn't a question. She opened a drawer and removed a photograph, placing it on the desk between them with deliberate care. "Perhaps this will help." Darius looked down. The same photograph that hung on his refrigerator stared back at him. Himself and Michael in desert camouflage, arms around each other's shoulders, both grinning at the camera like they owned the world and nothing bad could ever touch them. His throat tightened around words that wouldn't come. "You're Mike's wife." The admission came out quieter than he'd intended. "Widow," Victoria corrected, her voice suddenly tight with controlled emotion. 5 years now, thanks to Khorasan." The air in the room grew heavy with unspoken accusations. Darius maintained his composure through decades of discipline, though his heart hammered against his ribs hard enough that he wondered if she could hear it. "I wasn't aware Mike had a child. Lily was 2 when he died." Victoria's expression hardened into something resembling marble. Too young to remember her father, old enough to feel his absence every single day. Darius absorbed this information like a physical blow to the solar plexus. I'm sorry for your loss, ma'am. Mike was the best of us. Yes, he was. Victoria moved around her desk, leaning against it in a pose that seemed designed to appear casual while maintaining complete control. Tell me, Mr. Calloway, why did you give half your lunch to my daughter today? The abrupt change of subject caught him off guard, exactly as she'd intended. She looked like she needed it more than I did, a simple act of kindness. Victoria's tone carried skepticism like a weapon. Or did you know who she was? Darius's jaw tightened, old anger flaring. With all due respect, ma'am, I didn't know who either of you were until this moment. I saw a kid who was having a bad day. I've got a son, I know what that looks like. Victoria studied him, searching for deception in his micro-expressions. Finding none, she straightened. Lily ran away from her caretaker this morning. She's been doing that more frequently lately. She paused, and vulnerability flickered across her features before she locked it down. The security team missed her. So did her nanny. But you didn't. I noticed things, Darius said simply. Old habit. Yes, I imagine it is. Victoria pressed a button on her desk. A moment later, the door opened and Lily entered, clutching her one-eyed rabbit. She stopped short when she saw Darius, her eyes widening with recognition. Sandwich man. Despite everything, Darius's mouth curved slightly. Hey there, Lily. The little girl looked between Darius and her mother. Uncertainty written across her small features like someone had used a crayon. Lily. Victoria's voice gentled in a way that suggested this was rare. This is Mr. Calloway. He used to work with your father. The transformation was instantaneous. Lily rushed forward, stopping just before Darius with sudden shyness but vibrating with eagerness like a tuning fork struck at the perfect frequency. You knew my daddy? Darius knelt to her level the way he always did with Isaiah. Yes, I did. He was my friend. The words felt inadequate for the bond forged in gunfire and blood, but they were true enough for a 7-year-old. Was he brave? Lily's voice was small but intense, carrying the weight of a question she'd probably asked 100 times from 100 different people. The bravest man I ever knew. He saved my life more than once. Darius's voice roughened slightly, emotion leaking through despite his best efforts. Victoria watched this exchange with an unreadable expression. After a moment, she spoke to her daughter. Lily, Miss Chen is waiting to take you to your piano lesson. We'll talk more about this later. Lily looked disappointed but nodded with the resignation of a child who'd learned that adult decisions were final and arguing rarely changed outcomes. Will you be here again? Before Darius could answer, Victoria interjected. Mr. Calloway works here, Lily. Now go with Miss Chen, please. When the door closed behind Lily, the atmosphere in the room changed instantly. Victoria's professional mask slipped, revealing raw emotion beneath the carefully constructed facade. You shouldn't have told her that. Her voice carried an edge sharp enough to draw blood. Which part? Darius straightened to his full height. The part where her father was brave or the part where he saved my life? Any of it. Victoria snapped, control fraying at the edges. Do you have any idea how difficult it's been raising a child who constantly asks about a father she never really knew? Every new detail becomes an obsession. Every story becomes something she builds entire fantasies around. Darius remained silent, sensing the grief beneath her anger like bedrock beneath topsoil. Victoria composed herself with visible effort, shoulders squaring and expression smoothing back into corporate neutrality. I didn't bring you here to discuss Michael. Then why did you bring me here, ma'am? She returned to her desk, all business once more. I have a proposition for you, Mr. Calloway, one that would benefit us both. Darius waited, skeptical but curious. I've reviewed your employment file. Victoria opened a folder, though Darius suspected she had the contents memorized. You've been with building maintenance for 3 years despite being significantly overqualified. Your performance evaluations are excellent, but you've turned down 2 promotions. She fixed him with a penetrating gaze that seemed designed to excavate truth from unwilling subjects. A man with your skills could earn far more elsewhere. I need the flexibility for my son. Darius said, simply offering just enough truth to satisfy without revealing the full extent of his desperation. He has severe asthma. The schedule works for doctor appointments. Victoria nodded, unsurprised. Isaiah, age 7. Your wife Vanessa died in a car accident 3 years ago. She noted his surprise with satisfaction. Yes, I've done my research, Mr. Calloway. When someone shows unexpected kindness to my daughter, I make it my business to understand why. What exactly are you proposing, Miss Ashford? I need someone I can trust. Victoria emphasized the word trust as if testing its weight. Someone with your particular skill set who understands both security protocols and people. Morgan Technologies is facing challenges, internal and external. She slid a contract across the desk. I'm offering you a position as special advisor for operational integrity. You'll work directly with me, assessing our internal culture, security protocols, and potential vulnerabilities. The salary is 3 times what you currently make, with full medical benefits for both you and Isaiah. Coverage begins immediately, retroactive to today. All existing medical bills will be cleared. Darius stared at the contract, not touching it yet. The numbers seemed to swim before his eyes. Enough to cover Isaiah's medications. Enough to move out of the Bronx to somewhere with better schools. Enough to stop choosing between electricity and groceries. Why me? His voice came out rougher than intended. You have a building full of executives and security professionals with actual credentials. Victoria's expression darkened, and for the first time he saw genuine fear beneath the ice. Because someone inside this company is trying to steal technology that could change the world. Technology Michael helped develop before he died. She leaned forward. And I don't know who I can trust. The breach I mentioned in the bathroom? It wasn't the first. We've had 3 unauthorized access attempts in the past 2 months. Someone with executive-level clearance is systematically compromising our security. And you trust me because of Mike? Darius asked, skepticism evident. I trust you because you stopped for my daughter when no one else did. Victoria's voice softened fractionally. And because Michael trusted you with his life. He wrote about you in his letters, called you the best operator he'd ever served with, said if anything ever happened to him, you'd be the one who made it home. The words hit harder than any physical blow. Darius felt the old guilt rising like bile. I did make it home. Mike didn't, which is exactly why you'll help me protect his legacy. Victoria stood, extending her hand. Do I have your word, Mr. Calloway? Darius looked at the contract again, seeing not just numbers but possibilities. Isaiah with proper medical care, a future that didn't involve drowning in debt, a chance to honor the promise he'd made to a dying man in the Afghan desert. He stood and shook her hand, her grip firm and dry. I'll need to think about it. You have until tomorrow morning. Victoria's CEO mask slid back into place. This opportunity won't come again, Mr. Calloway. And just so we're clear, no one can know about this arrangement. As far as anyone is concerned, you're a corporate culture consultant who impressed me with your people skills. Darius paused at the door. With all due respect, Miss Ashford, I don't lie to my son, then consider it classified information. Victoria countered without missing a beat. Something I imagine you're familiar with. Their eyes locked in silent battle. 2 people who'd both lost too much testing each other's boundaries. Finally, Darius gave a curt nod and left. Darius's apartment felt smaller than usual that night. Walls closing in as he sat at the kitchen table with Victoria's contract spread before him, like a map to territory he wasn't sure he wanted to explore. Isaiah was asleep in the next room. Breathing monitored by the second-hand pulse oximeter Darius had repaired himself after finding it at a medical surplus store in Queens. The device beeped softly every few seconds, a rhythm that had become the soundtrack to his evenings. The photograph of himself and Michael stared up from beside the contract, a ghost from another life. Darius ran a hand over his face, exhaustion seeping into his bones deeper than any physical fatigue. His phone vibrated against the table, screen lighting up with a text message from an unknown number. Need your decision by 8 a.m. VA. Another message followed immediately. Isaiah's medical coverage would be retroactive to today, all existing bills covered. Darius stared at the words, anger and gratitude warring within him like opposing forces in a firefight he couldn't win. Victoria was using his son as leverage, and the worst part was that it worked. Every parent had a breaking point, and she'd found his with surgical precision. He moved to Isaiah's doorway, watching his son sleep in the dim glow from the hallway nightlight. The boy looked so much like Vanessa it sometimes hurt to look at him directly. Same determined chin even in sleep, same gentle expression that suggested dreams were kinder than waking life. The inhaler sat on the bedside table, nearly empty. The prescription refill form glared from the kitchen counter, a reminder written in official letterhead that Darius had failed to provide what his son needed most. The decision crystallized with the clarity of a mission briefing. He returned to the table and signed the contract, his signature bold and final. The executive floor was quiet at 7:45 the next morning. Most staff not yet arrived to begin their corporate rituals. Darius wore the only suit he owned, purchased for Vanessa's funeral and rarely worn since. It fit differently now, his frame leaner and harder from 3 years of manual labor and skipped meals. The fabric felt constraining after years of work clothes, like wearing someone else's skin. Victoria was already at her desk, immaculate in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Hair pulled back with mathematical precision. She looked up as he entered, expression giving nothing away. "Your decision, Mr. Calloway?" Darius placed the signed contract on her desk with more force than necessary. "I have conditions." Victoria raised an eyebrow, and he caught a flicker of something that might have been respect. "You're hardly in a position to negotiate. My son comes first." Darius interrupted, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd commanded men in combat. "If he has an asthma attack or medical emergency, I leave immediately. No questions asked, no explanations needed. That's non-negotiable." Victoria studied him for a long moment before nodding once. "Acceptable. Anything else? I need to know everything about the security breach." "All of it. If I'm going to help protect this company and Lily, I can't work blind." Something flickered across Victoria's face, surprise perhaps that he'd included her daughter in his protection mandate without being asked. "Some of that information is highly classified. I had top-secret clearance for 8 years, ma'am. I know how to handle sensitive information." Victoria considered this, then opened her laptop with decisive keystrokes. "Very well. James Hargrove, my COO, will brief you this morning. He doesn't know your full role here. As far as he's concerned, you're a corporate culture consultant I've brought in to address morale issues following some recent departmental conflicts." "Understood." Victoria stood and extended her hand across the desk. "Welcome to Morgan Technologies, Mr. Calloway. Try not to make me regret this." As they shook hands, Darius caught a glimpse of Lily peering through the glass wall of Victoria's office, her one-eyed rabbit clutched to her chest. The little girl offered a small secretive wave. Darius nodded slightly in acknowledgement, already understanding that his commitment extended far beyond a contract signature. He was re-entering a world of secrets and danger, this time without the protection of a uniform or the clarity of a declared enemy. Victoria followed his gaze and saw her daughter, her expression softening momentarily. She hasn't stopped talking about you since yesterday. The sandwich man who knew her daddy. Kids fixate on strange things sometimes. It wasn't the sandwich. Victoria replied, unexpected vulnerability creeping into her voice. It was that you saw her when no one else did. You stopped. Most people wouldn't have. Before Darius could respond, the office door opened and a silver-haired man entered, his eyes narrowing at the sight of Darius in civilian clothes rather than maintenance uniform. James Hargrove carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd never questioned his right to occupy any space he entered. Victoria, the board is waiting in conference room A. His gaze flicked to Darius, then to their clasped hands. I wasn't aware we had visitors this morning. Victoria released Darius's hand, her CEO persona sliding seamlessly back into place like armor being donned. James, this is Darius Calloway, our new special advisor for corporate culture and operational integrity. He'll be working directly with me on several initiatives. Hargrove didn't bother hiding his surprise. A maintenance worker. Surely there are more qualified candidates with actual credentials in organizational development. Mr. Calloway has a unique skill set that perfectly matches our current needs. Victoria interrupted coolly, her tone brooking no argument. He'll be joining the executive briefing starting today. Hargrove's smile didn't reach his eyes. How unconventional. Welcome aboard, Calloway. He turned to Victoria, placing a proprietary hand on her lower back. We should proceed. The board doesn't appreciate being kept waiting. Victoria subtly shifted away from his touch, a movement so slight most would miss it. But Darius caught it, along with the flash of irritation in Hargrove's eyes. The power dynamics were already revealing themselves. Fault lines in the corporate landscape that ran deeper than quarterly reports. Alone in the office after they left, Darius moved to the window, surveying the city below. Somewhere out there, Isaiah was sitting in his second-grade classroom at PS 134, breathing easier today thanks to the inhaler Darius had been able to refill with the advance Victoria had transferred to his account before sunrise. The notification had appeared on his phone at 5:30 a.m., an amount that made him check twice to ensure it wasn't a mistake. A movement reflected in the glass caught his attention. Lily had slipped back into the office and now stood watching him, rabbit dangling from one hand. Hello again. Are you going to work with my mom now? Lily asked with the directness only children possessed. Looks that way. She nodded seriously, processing this information with an intensity that seemed far beyond her years. Good. She needs help. She's always worried. About what? Everything. The bad people trying to steal her work, Uncle James being mean when he thinks no one's looking. She hugged her rabbit tighter, and Darius saw fear flicker across her small face. She cries sometimes when she thinks I'm asleep. Darius knelt to her level, meeting her eyes. Your mom seems pretty tough to me. Daddy used to say that too, but everyone needs backup. That's what he called it. People who help when things get scary. Smart man, your dad. Will you be mom's backup? The question carried weight beyond the child's understanding. Darius thought of Michael, of promises made in distant desert nights under stars that looked nothing like the ones visible through New York's light pollution. I'll do my best. Lily nodded as if this settled everything. She held out her rabbit suddenly. This is Captain Hoppy. Daddy gave him to me. He's missing an eye because he was brave in a battle. Darius solemnly shook the rabbit's paw. Pleasure to meet you, Captain. Lily lowered her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. Captain Hoppy says you have sad eyes like Mommy. Because you miss someone too. The observation, so simple and devastating, caught Darius completely off guard. Before he could respond, Victoria's assistant appeared at the door. Lily, there you are. Your tutor is waiting. She looked apologetically at Darius. I'm sorry, Mr. Calloway. She slips away sometimes. Lily reluctantly allowed herself to be led out, looking back at Darius with a small wave. He remained kneeling for a moment longer, steadying himself against the unexpected emotional ambush from a 7-year-old with uncanny perception. His phone vibrated. Text from Isaiah's school nurse. Isaiah having mild symptoms, responding to inhaler. No need to pick up yet, but wanted to inform you. Darius texted back confirmation, tension coiling in his chest. He needed this job, needed the medical coverage and stability it represented. For Isaiah's sake, he had to make this work no matter what it cost him personally. The boardroom was exactly what Darius expected. Polished mahogany, leather chairs, and abstract art that probably cost more than most people earned in a year. As he approached, he heard raised voices through the partially open door. "You can't just bring in unvetted personnel at this critical juncture," Hargrove was saying, his tone heated. "My company, my decision." Victoria responded with Arctic calm. "The board has already approved the position. Without knowing, you'd fill it with a maintenance worker with military baggage. We're dealing with sensitive technology here, not fixing toilets." "A decorated veteran with extensive technical and security expertise," Victoria corrected sharply. "And someone who understands loyalty, which seems to be in short supply around here lately." The implication hung in the air like cordite after a firefight. Darius stepped back, processing. The dynamics were crystallizing with uncomfortable clarity. Hargrove resented his presence and possibly feared it. Victoria was using him as a shield against something or someone within her own company. He was being played, but the question remained. By whom and to what end? Darius squared his shoulders and entered the boardroom. All conversation ceased as heads turned toward him. Victoria stood at the head of the conference table, her posture radiating authority despite being the youngest and only woman in the room. Around the table sat men in expensive suits, their expressions ranging from curiosity to poorly concealed hostility. "Gentlemen, this is Darius Calloway, our new special advisor." Victoria's eyes met Darius's, a silent message passing between them. "He'll be leading our vulnerability assessment starting today." The word choice was deliberate. Vulnerability could mean systems or people, technology or trust. "Mr. Calloway," Hargrove's voice dripped with forced cordiality. "Perhaps you could share your qualifications with the board. Help us understand what makes you uniquely suited for this role." Darius met his gaze steadily, recognizing the challenge for what it was. 15 years Special Forces, expert in identifying weaknesses, exploiting them, and eliminating threats before they become critical failures. He let the military precision of his voice do its work, watching several board members shift uncomfortably. "I find what's broken before it breaks you, and I look forward to working with each of you, especially those with nothing to hide." Hargrove's knuckles whitened around his pen. Victoria's lips curved in the ghost of a smile. "Let's begin, shall we?" As the meeting commenced, Darius observed the power dynamics at play, cataloging reactions and alliances with the same attention he'd once devoted to mapping insurgent networks. His military training had prepared him to read people as well as battlefields, to identify threats before they materialized into action. And there was definitely a threat in this room. He could feel it like static electricity before a storm. The technical department occupied the entire 15th floor, a sprawling landscape of workstations, test labs, and collaborative spaces that hummed with focused energy. Darius moved through it methodically over the next several days, building on his cover as the corporate culture consultant while gathering intelligence on the Project Phoenix team. He'd spent hours conducting employee satisfaction interviews, strategically selecting staff members with access to various components of the encryption system. The picture emerging was deeply troubling. Multiple security protocols had been relaxed over recent months, always with executive authorization that traced back to Hargrove's digital signature. Access restrictions had been modified. Biometric verification requirements had been downgraded. Someone was systematically creating vulnerabilities in the system's defenses. Now Darius sat across from Dr. Amara Okonkwo, lead encryption engineer and, according to Victoria's files, one of Michael's original team members. Unlike other staff who'd been nervous or dismissive of his questions, Okonkwo regarded him with open suspicion. "These don't sound like culture questions, Mr. Calloway." She tapped her stylus against her tablet, her British Nigerian accent crisp. "They sound like security audit questions, and you don't carry yourself like someone whose primary concern is employee morale." Darius smiled disarmingly. Company culture includes how safe people feel at work, both physically and digitally. Okonkwo wasn't buying it, and your background in building maintenance qualified you for this role. How exactly? You'd be surprised what you learn fixing things that others break. People talk around the maintenance guy. They reveal things. Okonkwo studied him with sharp intelligence evident in every micro-expression. "What are you really doing here, mister?" "Really? Calloway?" "Because Victoria Ashford doesn't hire people without a very specific purpose in mind." Darius decided to take a calculated risk. "What do you know about Project Phoenix's security protocols being altered without proper authorization?" Okonkwo's eyes widened slightly, confirmation that he'd struck a nerve. "Not here." She glanced around the open workspace. "Meet me in Lab C at 9 tonight after most people have left." Darius nodded once, keeping his expression neutral for any watching eyes. "Thank you for your feedback on our company culture initiatives, Dr. Okonkwo. Your insights are valuable." As he stood to leave, Okonkwo added in a normal volume, "You might want to check with the UX team on 12. I hear they have strong opinions about the cafeteria situation." A cover suggestion. This woman was smart and careful. That evening at 9:15, Darius made his way to Lab C, a secure testing facility in the northeast corner of the 15th floor. His new access card granted entry to the otherwise restricted area. Inside, advanced computing equipment hummed with purposeful energy. Monitors displayed lines of code and simulation models that Darius recognized as encryption algorithms, though the mathematics involved were beyond his expertise. Okonkwo was already there, fingers flying across a specialized keyboard. "You're 3 minutes late." "Military habit." I swept the floor for surveillance first. Okonkwo stopped typing and turned to face him. "Smart. Before we continue, I need to know who you really are and why Victoria brought you in now of all times." "I'm exactly who she says. A consultant helping identify vulnerabilities." Okonkwo's directness cut through the pretense. "You carry yourself like military. Your eyes constantly scan for threats, and you ask questions that suggest you already know the answers and are testing to see who else knows them." Darius maintained his calm exterior. "Why did you agree to meet if you don't trust me?" "Because something's catastrophically wrong with Phoenix and no one in official channels will listen." Okonkwo's expression hardened with frustration. "Security protocols I personally designed have been altered, access restrictions removed, biometric verification requirements downgraded. Every time I flag it, Hargrove overrides my concerns, citing operational efficiency." "When did this start?" 3 months ago, right after the last board evaluation of the project." Okonkwo pulled up a series of security logs highlighting specific entries. "These are authorized changes to the multi-factor authentication system, all approved by Hargrove using his executive override privileges." Darius studied the logs, noting the systematic pattern of security degradation. "Have you brought this to Victoria?" "Tried twice. Both times my evidence disappeared from the secure server before I could present it in any official capacity." Okonkwo's frustration was palpable. "And now Hargrove has restricted my access to certain Phoenix subsystems. Parts I designed myself." Darius's tactical mind began forming patterns. "Can you prove the restrictions weren't authorized by Victoria?" "Maybe. I've been running my own private audit, tracking login locations and timestamps against Victoria's known schedule. There are significant discrepancies, but it's not conclusive without access to the authentication servers. I need that data, and I need to know why I should trust you with it. Okonkwo crossed her arms. For all I know, you're working with Hargrove. Darius weighed his options. Full disclosure would be dangerous, but Okonkwo clearly needed more to gain her cooperation. I knew Michael Ashford. We served together in Afghanistan. I'm here because Victoria believes Hargrove is trying to steal Phoenix, and she needed someone from outside the corporate structure who couldn't be compromised through normal channels. Okonkwo's expression shifted, surprise giving way to cautious belief. Michael never mentioned you. He wouldn't have. Our work was classified at levels that don't officially exist. Okonkwo studied him intently, searching for deception. Finally, she nodded once. Michael had a personal security protocol he built into Phoenix, something he never documented officially but showed me once. A dead man's switch that activates if someone attempts unauthorized extraction of the complete code base. Darius tensed at the implications. What happens when it activates? It segments the encryption keys, distributing them across multiple secure locations. Makes the stolen data completely useless without all the fragments reassembled in proper sequence. And where are these fragments? That's the problem. Michael compartmentalized that information. I don't know all the locations. Okonkwo looked troubled, but someone's been trying to find them. There have been targeted searches through Michael's archived files, his old emails, even his personnel records. Hargrove, most likely. But he'd need help from someone with deep technical knowledge of the system architecture. The implication was clear. There was another traitor within the technical team, someone who understood Phoenix's infrastructure intimately enough to help Hargrove hunt for the fragments. Darius processed this information, fitting it into the larger picture forming in his mind. I need you to compile everything you have. Security changes, access logs, search patterns through Michael's files. Can you do that without alerting Hargrove? I've been documenting everything on an air-gapped system. No network connection, no remote access possible. Then we move tonight. Hargrove's accelerating his timeline, which means we're running out of room to maneuver. How quickly can you compile it? 2 hours if I work fast. Make it 90 minutes. Meet me in parking garage B2 at 11:45. Come alone and make sure you're not followed. As Darius turned to leave, Okonkwo called after him. Mr. Calloway, if Hargrove really is trying to steal Phoenix, he won't stop at corporate espionage. Michael believed this technology could fundamentally change how we think about digital security and privacy. People have killed for far less. I'm counting on it. Darius replied, his hand unconsciously moving to where his sidearm would have been during his military days. Just be careful and trust no one. Not even you? Okonkwo asked pointedly. Darius met her gaze steadily. Especially not me. Verify everything independently. A ghost of a smile touched Okonkwo's lips. Now you really do sound like Michael. The parking garage was deserted at 11:40, concrete structure echoing with distant sounds of the city that never quite slept. Darius had arrived 30 minutes early, sweeping the area for surveillance devices and potential ambush points with the methodical thoroughness of someone who'd survived 3 tours by never taking security for granted. He positioned himself near a concrete pillar with his back protected and clear sight lines to all approaches. His rental car was parked nearby, engine still warm from a quick trip to check on Isaiah. His son had been sleeping peacefully when Darius slipped into their apartment, the new medication finally providing the relief that cheaper alternatives couldn't deliver. Darius had stood in the doorway watching Isaiah breathe without struggle for several precious minutes, the sight centering him amid the day's accumulating chaos. Now footsteps echoed from the stairwell. Okonkwo emerged, clutching a tablet to her chest, eyes darting nervously around the dimly lit garage. Darius stepped slightly into the light, allowing her to see him without speaking. She hurried over, relief evident in her posture. "I was worried you wouldn't show. Did anyone follow you?" "No. I took the service elevator to the loading dock, then doubled back through maintenance corridors." She handed him the tablet. "Everything's here. Security logs, access changes, timestamp discrepancies, plus my analysis of the search patterns through Michael's files." Darius quickly verified the contents, his mind already processing implications. "This is exactly what we need. Good work. There's something else." Okonkwo glanced around again before continuing. "I found a hidden subroutine in the Phoenix architecture, something even I wasn't aware of until I started digging deeper into the core systems." "What kind of subroutine?" "It's like a digital dead man's switch on steroids. If certain parameters are met, parameters I can't fully determine without higher access, the entire system initiates a cascading shutdown sequence and sends encrypted alerts to multiple external servers." Darius looked up sharply. "A failsafe, something Michael built in case the technology fell into the wrong hands." "And there's more. The subroutine contains encrypted coordinates. Physical locations. 5 of them. The fragment locations." Darius concluded, pieces clicking into place. "Michael built a map into the system itself." "Exactly. But accessing those coordinates requires a decryption key I don't have. Without it, they're just meaningless strings of alphanumeric characters." Darius's mind raced with implications. If Michael had built a failsafe into Phoenix complete with a hidden map to the encryption fragments, he must have anticipated the technology being compromised, which meant he'd also ensured someone could access that failsafe if needed. "Go home now. Different route than you came. And don't come in tomorrow morning." Okonkwo frowned. "But the board meeting?" "Take a sick day. Trust me on this." Darius's tone left no room for argument. "And delete any backup copies of this data from your personal devices already done. That tablet contains the only copy outside of my air-gapped system." After Okonkwo departed, Darius remained in the garage for several more minutes, processing the new information while his tactical mind mapped possible next moves. The tablet contained enough evidence to raise serious questions about Hargrove's activities, but Darius suspected it wouldn't be enough to remove him entirely. Men like Hargrove built defenses in layers, creating plausible deniability and distributing blame. He was about to leave when his phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. "Behind you." Darius's combat instincts kicked in instantly. He dropped and rolled toward the nearest vehicle, hand reaching for the tactical folding knife in his ankle holster. The garage remained silent, no movement visible in any direction. His phone vibrated again. "Northwest corner. Black sedan. Get in." Darius spotted the vehicle, a nondescript Audi with tinted windows parked deep in shadows. The driver's identity was obscured, but something about the silhouette seemed familiar in a way that made his pulse quicken with recognition he couldn't quite place. Against every instinct screaming caution, Darius approached warily, keeping parked cars between himself and the sedan for cover. When he was within 20 feet, the driver's window lowered slightly. "You've gotten sloppy, Calloway. I counted 3 ways I could have dropped you before you even knew I was here." The voice froze Darius mid-step, gruff and authoritative with the distinctive cadence of military command. Colonel Nathan Pierce, the man who had led the Horizon mission 5 years ago, who'd presided over the inquiry afterward, who'd retired from active service amid whispers of classified operations gone catastrophically wrong. The window lowered further, revealing stern features that looked older than Darius remembered, more gray in the close-cropped hair and deeper lines around eyes that had seen too much. "Get in before someone sees us together. We need to talk." Darius hesitated, his mind racing through possibilities and probabilities. Pierce had retired from active service shortly after Horizon. disappearing into the private sector so completely that even military intelligence networks lost track of him. His appearance now, at this precise moment, couldn't be coincidence. "How did you find me?" "I never lost you, son." Pierce's expression remained impassive, carved from granite and old secrets. "Now get in the damn car. Time's short and you're in deeper than you realize." Darius's instincts warred with curiosity. Pierce had been Michael's commanding officer too, had recruited them both for the operation that ended with body bags and classified reports. If anyone knew the full story of what happened in Khorasan, it was the man sitting in this sedan. Decision made, Darius circled to the passenger side and got in, keeping his knife accessible in his palm. "Smart," Pierce commented, noticing the defensive posture. "Never fully trust anyone, not even old COS." The interior smelled of leather and gun oil, immaculately maintained. Pierce looked older than Darius remembered, weathered by years that had clearly not been kind. "What are you doing here, Colonel?" "Same thing as you, protecting Michael Ashford's legacy." Pierce kept his eyes forward, scanning the garage entrances with professional paranoia. "And trying to keep you alive long enough to finish what we started in Khorasan. The mission was a disaster. Got good men killed. Is that what you think happened?" Pierce's voice remained neutral, but his knuckles whitened slightly on the steering wheel. "That we failed? Michael died. 3 other team members died. The target escaped with the prototype." Darius kept his voice flat, reciting facts like an after-action report. "By any military definition, that's a failure." Pierce was silent for a long moment, and Darius heard the weight of classified information pressing against sealed lips. "What if I told you Khorasan wasn't about the target or the prototype at all? That the real mission objective was accomplished precisely as planned?" Darius stared at his former commander, processing implications that rewrote 5 years of guilt and self-recrimination. "You're saying we were the diversion, expendable assets. I'm saying not everything is as it appears, especially when it comes to operations like Phoenix." Pierce finally turned to face him. "Hargrove isn't just a corporate thief, Calloway. He's connected to the same network that was waiting for us in Khorasan. People who've been after this technology for years, long before Michael ever worked at Morgan Technologies." "How do you know about Hargrove? About Phoenix?" "Because I've been watching Morgan Technologies since Michael's death, waiting for them to make their move." Pierce pulled out a secure phone displaying surveillance photos. Hargrove meeting with several men in various locations, coffee shops and hotel lobbies and parking structures. These 2 are former intelligence operatives now working private sector for the highest bidder. This one is a known broker for technological black markets, all connected to a network that would very much like to control global encryption standards for the next decade. Darius studied the images, recognizing the tradecraft in how the meetings were structured. Dead drops and cutouts, plausible deniability built into every interaction. Does Victoria know about this? Victoria Ashford knows her company is under threat. She doesn't know the full scope of what she's dealing with. Pierce put the phone away, his movements economical. Just like she doesn't know the full truth about her husband's death. The statement hung between them like a live grenade with the pin already pulled. Darius felt his throat tighten around words that wouldn't come. What truth? Pierce's expression grew grave, aged beyond his years by secrets that clearly haunted him. Michael didn't die because the mission failed, Calloway. He died because it succeeded. He found something in that compound, something beyond the prototype we were sent to secure, something worth dying to protect. The Phoenix fragments. Darius murmured, pieces clicking into place with sickening clarity. Pierce looked genuinely surprised for the first time. You know about the fragments. Just found out tonight. Michael built a failsafe into the system. A way to distribute and secure the encryption keys if the main technology was compromised. Pierce nodded slowly, relief and concern warring across his features. Michael was always thinking 3 moves ahead. He knew the risks when he volunteered for Horasan, knew he might not make it back, but someone had to verify what we were really after. "Then why send him at all?" Darius demanded, old anger resurging like a wound torn open. "Why not extract the information another way?" Because Michael was the only one who could verify the prototype's integrity and identify who was waiting on the other end of that transaction. Pierce's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "The prototype was bait, Calloway. We knew it had been compromised before we ever inserted. What we needed was confirmation of who was buying and what their larger network looked like." Darius processed this revelation, memories of that night reconstructing themselves with new context. The unexpected resistance they'd encountered, the way Michael had insisted on securing the prototype himself, ordering Darius to escort the wounded team members to the extraction point. The radio call that came too late, Michael's voice cutting through static and gunfire with his final order. "You sacrificed him." The accusation fell between them, heavy with 5 years of survivor's guilt. He sacrificed himself. Pierce corrected firmly, meeting Darius's eyes without flinching. Michael knew exactly what he was walking into. He made his choice to protect the future of technology he believed in and to identify the network trying to steal it. Your job was to survive and carry that intelligence forward. "Does Victoria know any of this?" Pierce shook his head. The operation was classified at levels that officially don't exist. As far as she knows, Michael died securing a military prototype during a standard special operations mission. Nothing more. Darius leaned back against the seat, the weight of these revelations pressing on him like atmospheric pressure at depth. "Why tell me this now? Because history is about to repeat itself, and I need you ready for what's coming." Pierce reached into his jacket and removed a small flash drive. "Hargrove has been systematically hunting for the Phoenix fragments. He's found 3 already through methods I'd rather not detail. The last 2 are still secure, but not for long. How do you know this? Because I've been tracking their recovery operations. Financial transfers to known operatives, communication intercepts, surveillance on Hargrove's team." Pierce handed Darius the drive. "This contains everything I have. Enough to prove he's working for the same network we encountered in Horasan, but probably not enough to convict him in any court that matters." Darius took the drive, turning it over in his hand. "Why not take this directly to Victoria? Because I don't know who else in her company is compromised. The infiltration goes deeper than Hargrove." Pierce checked his watch, a military timepiece that had probably seen as many combat zones as Darius himself. Tomorrow's board meeting isn't just about Phoenix. It's about removing Victoria from power. Hargrove has gathered enough board support to force a vote of no confidence. Darius felt recognition crystallize. The classic corporate coup: eliminate the leadership, create chaos, extract valuable assets during the confusion. "I need to warn her. You need to secure the remaining fragments first," Pierce countered, his voice carrying command authority. "If Victoria is removed tomorrow, Hargrove will have unrestricted access to company systems within hours. The fragments are the priority. Everything else is secondary. Where are they? One is with me, secured in a location even you won't learn." Pierce hesitated, and Darius saw something like regret flicker across his weathered features. "The final fragment Michael entrusted to you, Calloway. You just don't know it yet." Darius stared at his former commander, confusion and disbelief warring for dominance. "That's impossible. I would know if I was carrying around part of a multi-billion-dollar encryption system." "Would you?" Pierce interrupted, leaning forward. "Think, Calloway. What did Michael give you before the mission? Something personal, something you'd never part with even after all these years." Darius's mind raced through his last interactions with Michael before Horasan, the planning sessions in the briefing room, equipment checks in the armory, final mission review in the barracks. And then a quiet moment, just the two of them, Michael pressing something small and metallic into his palm. "Hold on to this for me, would you? Lucky charm. Give it back when we both get home." The compass, a weathered antique with an inscription inside the lid that Darius had never been able to fully decipher, written in a language or code he didn't recognize. He'd kept it all these years, carrying it in his pocket as a reminder of promises broken and friends lost. "The compass," Darius whispered, realization dawning like a sunrise he'd rather not see. Pierce nodded once. Inside the casing, microdot technology embedded in the metalwork, the final encryption key hidden in plain sight for 5 years. Darius reached into his pocket, fingers closing around the familiar shape, a talisman of guilt that had unknowingly been a vital piece of Michael's legacy all along. Hargrove doesn't know about this. Not yet. But he's getting closer. The people he works for are patient and methodical. They've spent 5 years piecing together what happened in Khorasan, tracking the fragmented technology across continents and through shell corporations. Pierce started the car, engine purring to life with German precision. "You need to get that compass and my fragment to Victoria before the board meeting tomorrow. It's her only chance of maintaining control and preventing Phoenix from falling into the wrong hands." "And then what?" "Then you finish what Michael started." Pierce put the car in drive, his expression grim. "You protect Phoenix from being weaponized no matter what it costs. Just like he did." The implication was clear. Some missions required sacrifice, and Darius was being asked to make the same calculation Michael had made in Khorasan. Pierce dropped him at his vehicle, and as the sedan disappeared up the exit ramp, Darius pulled out his phone to call Victoria. No signal. He tried again, moving to different areas of the garage. Nothing. Someone was jamming communications, which meant they knew about this meeting or had been monitoring him more closely than he'd realized. A flash of movement in his peripheral vision was his only warning. Darius ducked instinctively as something whistled past his ear, striking the concrete pillar behind him with a metallic ping that echoed through the garage. Suppressed weapon. High-velocity round. Professional shooter. Darius dropped and rolled beneath a nearby SUV, adrenaline flooding his system like it had 1,000 times before. His combat training took over, mind cataloging assets and threats in milliseconds. 2 more shots pinged off concrete nearby, suppressed but still audible in the empty garage. He tracked the shooter's position based on bullet trajectories. Northeast corner, elevated position, likely the roof of the adjacent parking structure. His phone vibrated in his pocket. Signal returned as suddenly as it had vanished. Darius pulled it out with one hand, while continuing to move between vehicles, keeping metal and concrete between himself and the shooter's position. Text from Victoria. "Don't come to the office. Hargrove knows Lily and I are secure. Meet at secondary location." Another shot, closer this time. The shooter was adjusting, tracking his movement with practiced precision. Darius needed to break the line of sight and create chaos. He spotted a fire alarm on a nearby pillar, one of the old manual pull systems that would trigger building-wide protocols. Without hesitation, Darius surged forward in a combat roll, came up beside the pillar and smashed the alarm glass with his elbow. Sirens blared throughout the garage, emergency lights strobing. Sprinklers activated seconds later, filling the space with artificial rain and obscuring visibility. Darius used the chaos to sprint to his vehicle, keeping low and using parked cars as cover. 3 more shots followed him, one grazing his jacket as he dove into the driver's seat. He gunned the engine, tires squealing on wet concrete as he accelerated toward the exit ramp. In the rearview mirror, he caught a glimpse of dark figures emerging from a stairwell. At least 3 men in tactical gear, weapons drawn. Not just a sniper, a full extraction team. Hargrove had escalated beyond corporate espionage to direct action, which meant the timeline had compressed faster than anyone anticipated. Darius swerved to avoid another shot, then accelerated up the ramp and onto the street. His military training took over, executing evasive driving maneuvers through late-night traffic, constantly checking for pursuit. After 15 minutes of route changes and counter-surveillance, he was reasonably confident he'd lost any immediate tail. He pulled into an all-night diner parking lot, positioning his vehicle for quick exit while maintaining visibility of all approaches. Darius checked himself for injuries. Nothing serious, just a graze on his arm where a bullet had torn through his jacket. The fabric was ruined, but the skin underneath had only a shallow cut. More concerning was the situation itself. Hargrove had deployed a professional hit team with military-grade equipment and training. This was no longer just corporate theft. It was an organized operation with significant resources backing it. Darius dialed Victoria's number directly. She answered on the first ring. "Are you safe? For now. Where are you? Secure location with Lily. What happened?" "I got alerts that building security was deployed to the parking garage. Hargrove's team tried to kill me. Full tactical squad with suppressed weapons and coordinated fire." Victoria's sharp intake of breath was audible. "Are you injured?" "Minor. But we have a bigger problem. I met with Colonel Pierce tonight. He has intelligence that changes everything about what we thought we knew." "Pierce is alive? I thought he'd disappeared after the inquiry. He's been watching." "Tracking Hargrove's network. Victoria, the people backing Hargrove are the same ones from Horizon. This has been a 5-year operation to acquire Phoenix." Silence on the line as she processed. "How much does Pierce know?" "Everything, including what Michael was really doing in Horizon and why he died." More silence, heavier this time. "I need to see you. Now. But not at any location connected to the company or my personal properties. Hargrove will have them all under surveillance. I know a place. An old teammate runs a private security firm off the books." No questions asked. Completely secure, Darius started the car. "But first I need to check on Isaiah. Make sure Hargrove hasn't moved against him. Be careful. And Darius, thank you for keeping your word to Michael even when you didn't know what it would cost." The words landed harder than any bullet. Darius ended the call and drove toward the Bronx, toward his son and the simple apartment that represented everything he was fighting to protect. PS 134 looked different in morning light, less institutional and more like what it was, a place where children learned and played and built futures. Darius arrived early, before most students, carrying Lily in one arm while she clutched Captain Hoppy to her chest. Victoria had met him at his apartment in the pre-dawn darkness, both of them exhausted but running on adrenaline and desperation. Isaiah was already there, coloring at a small table in Mrs. Kowalski's classroom. The elderly woman had agreed to watch both children, asking no questions when Darius explained he had urgent business that couldn't wait. She'd simply nodded, understanding evident in her weathered face. "Dad!" Isaiah rushed over, throwing his arms around Darius's waist. Then he noticed Lily, curiosity replacing excitement. "Who's she?" "This is Lily. Her dad was my best friend. He's not here anymore, like your mom." Isaiah's expression shifted, childhood wisdom recognizing shared grief. "Oh." He turned to Lily, who was watching him with shy uncertainty. "Your bunny's missing an eye. He was brave in a battle." Lily explained, holding up Captain Hoppy for inspection. "My daddy gave him to me before he went to war." "That's cool," Isaiah said with genuine admiration. "Want to see my dinosaur drawing? It's a T-Rex with robot arms." Just like that, the connection was made. Lily followed Isaiah to the table, Captain Hoppy tucked securely under one arm. Darius knelt beside his son, placing a hand on his shoulder. "I have to help Lily's mom with something today, big people stuff. You keep Lily safe, okay?" Isaiah's expression turned serious, understanding the weight of responsibility being placed on him. "I will, Dad. I promise." The words echoed with significance beyond their surface meaning. Generational transmission of values, father to son, promises kept across time. Darius stood and moved to where Victoria waited near the door, watching her daughter with an expression that blended love and fear and desperate hope. They'll be safe here. Mrs. Kowalski has lived in this neighborhood for 40 years. She knows everyone and everyone knows her. Anyone unfamiliar will stand out immediately. Darius kept his voice low. Plus, I've got a friend watching the building. Former Delta owes me from Kandahar. Hargrove's people won't get within 2 blocks without us knowing. Victoria nodded, then surprised him by placing a hand on his arm. When this is over, assuming we survive it, we should talk. About Michael, about what really happened in Khorasan, about what comes next. One step at a time, Darius replied, but he didn't pull away from her touch. First we secure Phoenix and remove Hargrove, then we figure out the rest. They drove separately to the location Darius had specified, an industrial warehouse in Red Hook that looked abandoned from the outside. But Darius knew better. Ezra Baptiste, who'd gone by Easy during their time in the service, ran one of the most sophisticated private security operations on the East Coast from this building. The side entrance opened before Darius finished knocking, revealing a man built like a linebacker with a shaved head and arms covered in tactical tattoos. His impassive expression broke into a wide grin. "Calloway, you ugly bastard. Didn't think I'd ever see you again after you went civilian." Easy pulled him into a brief, powerful embrace before stepping back. "And you must be the client he called about at O'Dark 30. Victoria Ashford." She extended her hand, all business despite the chaos of the past 12 hours. "Thank you for the short notice accommodation." Easy's demeanor shifted to professional efficiency. "Any friend of Dee's? Come on in. Medical team standing by if you need patching up." The interior of the warehouse belied its exterior. State-of-the-art operations center, monitors displaying security feeds and communication intercepts. Personnel moved with military precision, acknowledging Darius with nods of recognition. Easy led them to a secure briefing room. "So what kind of shitstorm have you walked into this time, Dee?" Over the next hour, they laid out everything. Hargrove's conspiracy, the Phoenix fragments, Pierce's intelligence, the attack in the parking garage. Easy listened without interruption, his expression growing more serious with each revelation. When they finished, he leaned back in his chair. "Corporate black ops with foreign intelligence backing. Ballsy. And stupid because now you've got me interested." He stood and moved to a tactical display. "Here's what I can give you. Secure communications, tactical gear if you need weapons, and a 4-man team on standby for rapid response. What I can't give you is direct action on U.S. soil against what are technically civilians, even if they're trying to kill you." "Understood. We just need support while we execute." Victoria was already adapting to the military environment. "The board meeting is in 3 hours. I need to be there with evidence that can't be disputed and security that Hargrove can't compromise." Easy nodded. "I'll have a team positioned in the building. They'll be armed but discreet. Signal if you need extraction or enforcement." Darius pulled out the compass, laying it on the table. "We also need this analyzed. There's supposed to be a microdot embedded in the casing with encryption data." Easy examined it under a magnifying glass, then nodded. "Yeah, I see it. Microfabrication, probably military grade. Give me 30 minutes with the right equipment." While Easy worked on extracting the data, Darius and Victoria reviewed their approach. The evidence from Okonkwo, the intelligence from Pierce, the compass fragment. Combined, it should be enough to force the board to act against Hargrove. Should be. But Darius had learned in combat that should and would were separated by the distance between planning and execution. Easy returned with a small data chip. "Got it. Whatever's on here is encrypted 6 ways from Sunday, but your tech person should be able to integrate it into whatever system it's designed for." Victoria took the chip with careful reverence. "This is the last piece Michael left us. His final protection against the technology being weaponized. Then let's make sure his sacrifice meant something. Darius checked his watch. 2 hours until the meeting. We should move. Morgan Technologies loomed against the morning glass facade reflecting clouds that promised rain. Darius and Victoria entered separately, using different entrances. Easy's team was already in position. 4 operators distributed throughout the building in maintenance uniforms and security guard disguises. Darius made his way to the server room via maintenance corridors, the familiar routes feeling different now that he understood the stakes. Dr. Okonkwo was already there, having ignored his advice to stay home. I couldn't sit this out. She handed him a tablet. I've integrated everything into a presentation that will override all executive displays when triggered. Financial evidence, security logs, timeline analysis, irrefutable. Darius connected the data chip from the compass. Can you integrate this? Okonkwo's eyes widened as she examined the encryption. This is Michael's work. I'd recognize his coding signature anywhere. She began typing rapidly. It'll take 10 minutes to properly integrate into the fail-safe protocols. We have 9. As Okonkwo worked, Darius's phone buzzed. Text from Victoria. Hargrove called emergency pre-meeting. Trying to lock votes before I can present evidence. Darius swore under his breath. We need to accelerate. Can you push the integration faster? Okonkwo's fingers flew across the keyboard. Done. The failsafe is now fully armed. If Hargrove tries anything, Victoria can trigger it remotely and Phoenix will self-destruct rather than fall into wrong hands. Darius triggered the fire alarm on the executive floor, creating controlled chaos. Sirens blared, emergency protocols activating. In the confusion, Victoria accessed her office terminal and initiated the evidence broadcast. Every screen throughout the executive level flickered, then displayed damning proof. Hargrove meeting with foreign operatives, financial transfers to offshore accounts, security overrides traced to his credentials, communication intercepts proving conspiracy. The boardroom erupted. Through the window, Darius watched board members rise from their seats, pointing at screens and shouting questions. Hargrove's face contorted with rage and disbelief as his carefully constructed facade shattered. 4 of Hargrove's security team broke from their positions, moving toward Victoria's office with tactical precision. Darius intercepted them in the corridor, his military training overriding civilian restraint. The first operative went down to a Krav Maga wristlock, disarmed and restrained in seconds. The second swung a baton that Darius redirected into a wall with brutal efficiency. Victoria appeared from her office, weapon drawn but steady. Stand down or I will fire. Her voice carried absolute conviction. The remaining 2 operatives hesitated, seeing their advantage evaporate. Easy's team emerged from concealment, 4 professionals with weapons ready. Building security is on the way. Anyone still armed when they arrive will be treated as hostile. The calculation was clear. Hargrove's people lowered their weapons, recognizing their position as untenable. Darius and Victoria entered the boardroom together through the main entrance. The evidence was still playing on the massive display, impossible to ignore or dismiss. Hargrove stood at the head of the table, cornered but dangerous. Every document is authenticated and verifiable. Victoria's voice cut through the chaos. Mr. Hargrove has been systematically stealing proprietary technology for foreign sale. The evidence is comprehensive and conclusive. This is fabricated. Hargrove's desperation showed through his fury. She's manufacturing this to cover her own incompetence. The board chairman, a man in his 70s with steel-gray hair and harder eyes, stood slowly. These are extraordinarily serious allegations, Miss Ashford. Mr. Hargrove claims they're falsified. Then he should have no objection to independent forensic analysis. Victoria replied calmly. Every file, every transaction, every communication can be verified by third parties. I welcome such scrutiny. Hargrove's hand moved toward his jacket. Darius saw it in the split second before action, the tell of someone reaching for a concealed weapon. Old reflexes took over. Gun! Darius tackled Hargrove as the pistol cleared his jacket. The weapon discharged once, bullets striking the ceiling and raining plaster on the conference table. Board members scattered, some diving under the table, others rushing for exits. Darius subdued Hargrove with practiced efficiency, using pressure points and leverage to overcome resistance without causing permanent damage. Within 20 seconds, Hargrove was face down on the expensive carpet, wrists secured with zip ties from Darius's tactical vest. Building security burst through the doors, weapons drawn. Easy's team had already faded back into cover, their presence unremarkable among the chaos. Secure that weapon. The board chairman's voice cut through the confusion. And someone call the police. We have attempted murder to add to the charges. As Hargrove was hauled to his feet, he locked eyes with Darius. This isn't over, Calloway. You have no idea what you've provoked. The people I work for don't accept failure. I know exactly who you work for. Darius kept his voice level, meeting Hargrove's glare without flinching. Same network from Horasan. Tell them they failed then and they've failed now. Some things aren't for sale. Surprise flickered across Hargrove's features before security led him away. The board reconvened in emergency session, minus Hargrove and several members who'd clearly been compromised. Victoria presented the complete evidence package, including Dr. Okonkwo's testimony about the security breaches and systematic protocol degradation. The vote was unanimous. Hargrove's immediate termination and referral to federal authorities for prosecution. Afterward, Victoria found Darius in her office, staring out at the city. Okonkwo confirmed Phoenix is secure. The failsafe is active, all fragments accounted for. If anyone tries unauthorized access, the system will erase itself. Good. Michael's legacy stays protected. There's still the larger network. The people backing Hargrove won't simply abandon a multi-billion-dollar technology. I know. Victoria moved to stand beside him. But we've bought time, established defenses. And we're no longer fighting alone. She turned to face him directly. I owe you an apology for using Isaiah's medical bills as leverage, for manipulating you into this position. You gave my son a future, Darius replied quietly. Whatever your methods, the result is that Isaiah can breathe without struggling. That's worth more than pride. Still, it wasn't right. Maybe not. But it worked, and sometimes that's what matters. They stood in silence for a moment, two people who'd lost too much finding unexpected common ground. We should pick up the children. Victoria checked her watch. They've been patient long enough. PS 134 was chaotic with afternoon dismissal. Children streaming out to waiting parents and buses. Darius and Victoria found Isaiah and Lily in Mrs. Kowalski's classroom, sitting at a table with drawings spread between them. Captain Hoppy sat propped against a juice box, one button eye surveying their artwork. Mommy! Lily rushed over, throwing her arms around Victoria's waist. Isaiah showed me how to draw dinosaurs with robot parts. Dad! Isaiah was right behind her. Lily knows all about constellations. She taught me how to find Orion. Darius knelt, pulling his son into a hug. Sounds like you two had fun. Can Lily come over? Isaiah asked with the enthusiasm of a child who'd found a kindred spirit. We could show her the roof where we watch stars. Victoria and Darius exchanged glances, something unspoken passing between them. Maybe this weekend, Victoria suggested, and Lily's face lit up with hope. The following Saturday found them in Central Park, spread on a blanket while Isaiah and Lily played soccer nearby, using Captain Hoppy as an improvised goalpost. The rabbit's missing eye somehow made him perfect for the role, both children agreed. Lily presented Darius with a drawing she'd made during the week, him and Michael in desert camouflage, then Darius holding both children's hands. The title in careful crayon, Daddy's Best Friend Keeps Promises. Darius's throat tightened as he studied the image. This is beautiful, Lily. Thank you. Daddy would be happy you're here. she stated with absolute conviction. Captain Hoppy told me so. Victoria sat beside Darius, her hand finding his. 5 years is a long time to live in shadow of the past. Maybe it's time we both stepped into light. One step at a time, Darius replied, but he didn't pull his hand away. Together. Isaiah scored a goal, both children cheering. Captain Hoppy toppled over from the impact, and they carefully repositioned him before continuing their game. Darius looked at the drawing again, seeing not just what Lily had captured, but what it represented. Michael's sacrifice hadn't been in vain. The technology he'd died protecting remained secure. His daughter was safe, laughing in autumn sunshine. And the promise Darius had made in a dusty compound half a world away had finally been fulfilled. Some debts could never be fully repaid, but perhaps they could be honored in ways that allowed for new beginnings, new promises, new possibilities. Victoria leaned against his shoulder, comfortable in the silence. What happens now? Now we live, Darius said simply. We protect what matters, we keep our promises, and we make sure Isaiah and Lily grow up in a world where their father's sacrifices meant something. Michael would approve. He would. Darius agreed, watching the children play. He always said the mission wasn't about the objective. It was about who you protected along the way. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Easy had sent a discreet text earlier. Pierce's intelligence had been forwarded to appropriate federal agencies. The larger network would face pressure, though prosecution would take years. Hargrove was in custody, facing charges that would ensure he never saw freedom again. But in this moment, on this blanket in Central Park with children's laughter filling the air, the larger battles felt distant. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The network backing Hargrove wouldn't disappear simply because one operation failed. There would be more threats, more attempts, more vigilance required. But tonight, Darius had kept his promise. His son was healthy and safe. Michael's daughter was protected and happy, and the technology worth dying for remained in hands that would honor its creator's intentions. In a dark office halfway around the world, a man in an expensive suit reviewed the final report on Operation Phoenix recovery. He lit a cigar, contemplating failure with the detachment of someone who'd experienced it before. Hargrove is compromised. The technology remains secured. Calloway proved more formidable than projections indicated. He leaned forward into the light, revealing features that suggested Eastern European ancestry. Activate Contingency Sigma. If we cannot acquire the technology through infiltration, we'll force them to surrender it willingly. Target the children, both of them. Make Ashford choose between her company's security and her daughter's life. He exhaled smoke, watching it curl toward the ceiling. Some people will sacrifice anything except their children. We'll test that theory. But Darius Calloway, sitting in Central Park with his arm around Victoria Ashford and watching their children play, couldn't hear the threat forming across an ocean. Well, he could only see the present moment, fragile and precious and hard-won. Keep your promises, he'd told Isaiah that morning. No matter what it costs, you keep your word. And as the sun set over Manhattan, painting the city in gold and shadow, Darius understood that some promises were never finished. They simply evolved, generation to generation, each keeper adding their own chapter to stories that stretched beyond individual lives. Michael Ashford had made his stand in Khorasan. Darius Calloway had made his in a corporate tower and parking garage. And someday, perhaps Isaiah and Lily would face their own moments of choice, carrying forward the legacy of promises kept and sacrifices honored. But that was tomorrow's story. Tonight there was only this, laughter and soccer and a one-eyed rabbit standing guard over children who didn't yet understand how much they'd been protected, or how much they'd been loved.